yesterday, an interview was made, well, released, I guess, to Grouch, the game director of Guild Wars 2, with a lot of information of the future of the game and what they intend and how essentially the new system of yearly expansions has worked. And yeah, there's a lot of good information, and we'll see. We're going to read it here, and we're going to talk about what it all entails, what it all means. Subscribe channel for more content like this, of course. So here's the thing, right? Let's see. Guild Wars 2 Q&A, Arena and switching to yearly expansion, secret obscure learnings, and 2024 updates. Following the MMORPG's 10-year anniversary celebrated last year, Arena has picked up steam. Partly thanks for joining Valve's namesake store. So yeah, we got into Steam, which is also very important because a lot of new people are trying the game and coming back to it. With the ongoing development of Guild Wars 2, the Bellevue-based developer released the 4th expansion, Secret of the Obscure, in August. And there's more coming between free content and paid expansions with a new yearly model. WCC Tech, it's just this website, has the opportunity to access the studio's end-year blog post in advance, where Arena confirmed Secret of the Obscure has been a financial success. We'll see about that, but that's what they're saying right now. We're gonna see how the next quarterly reports show and how much actual money they did, but because that's probably the expansions, the quarterly reports that will show the expansion, but we'll see. Which includes new story chapters, the Temple of Fury Strike challenge mode. I like how they didn't talk about Dagda. I think that's good. 9 new weapon proficiencies, the ability to unlock the new legendary armor, and the Wizard's Vault reward refresh would arrive early next year. Oh, they're talking about what's gonna come later. Alright, sure. Because Dagda CM was kind of a disappointment, not only because it wasn't really that good of a fight, but because of the fact that it didn't even have a title, which is very sussy. And I don't like it. At the same time, we were able to set up a chat with game director Josh Davis, Grouch, to discuss the big changes on the game's development pace, their learnings from the Secrets of the Obscure, and what the future looks like for Guild Wars 2. By the way, there's a 75% discount. Pog, you guys should buy the game. Pog. Use, do exclamation mark. I don't know. Well, we have a game. We have a code on the chat. I'll remember which one it is. But yes, boom. I should probably put that in YouTube. I'll probably put it on YouTube. Okay, there we go. There was a 4.5-year span between 2017 Path of Fire and 2002's End of Dragons. Now, though, you've settled on much quicker pace for the next expansions. What prompted this change? Will you attempt to keep the yearly expansion model for the foreseeable future? There are 2 main drivers behind this change. First, we want to provide a better game experience by fans by adopting a more consistent release cadence, eliminating extended content routes that we did have a lot of them, by the way, back in the day, and increasing support for the core game, Waters of Old, Fractals, etc. Which is actually very intelligent, because if you go for the core game, you get all the new players in, and they will eventually, invest themselves into the game enough so they buy the expansions and most stuff like that, and they could also use microtransactions regardless. Second, we want to adopt a dev cycle that would allow our team to maintain a healthy work/life balance. So not a lot of not a lot of overwork, not a lot of rushing. I think that's very fair. It does seem like Ennet has been going for the rushing things for a long time, with End of Dragons, with Azure Saga. Well, I guess Azure Saga they were actually pretty okay with that. I think they had like an okay pace on those things, but I'm sure that most of the expansions were like completely a disaster in terms of how much they rushed and overworked for them. Definitely, we saw this in, I think, a little bit on Secrets of the Obscure, and definitely End of Dragons for sure. We're in a marathon, not a sprint. Now that is something very nice to hear. So they're not going for, well, at least they're saying going for a whole like, oh, we're just gonna pump a few expansions, kill the game, move to the next one. The structure of this approach allows us to take a long-term outlook toward planning, which helps with scheduling and staffing. Makes sense. In terms of the future, we're actively working on expansion of 2024. Expansion 5, and planning on one for 2025 Expansion 6. So it is essentially confirmed that we are getting once a year. We're getting expansion once a year, which is very good. And it is also very refreshing to say that they are actually thinking about Expansion 6. And it makes me think that Secrets of the Obscure did do well. Otherwise, they would not be thinking about Expansion 6, I don't think. And it's interesting. I know a lot of people have a lot of issues with Secrets of the Obscure. And I get it, especially in terms of endgame. But of course, just because you have those issues, and I have those issues too, doesn't mean that the game isn't doing really well. Because most people don't really do that kind of endgame anyways. Which is about as far into the future that we can reasonably foresee. I mean, of course. I mean, I don't think you should be thinking about Expansion 7, right? I think that's what... Expansion 5 isn't out yet, right? I'm sure that when Expansion 5 is happening, they can start thinking about Expansion 7, but it makes sense. It makes sense, right? You've said Secrets of the Obscure was financially successful right now. Can you share a ballpark of how many developers you've got actively working on Guild Wars 2 content, rather than the possibility of other projects? Now, this is a very interesting question. How many people are working in Guild Wars 2 versus how many people are working on the unannounced project? Because ArenaNet does have an unannounced project that they're working on. And I wonder... Actually, let me leave this map because I'm not paying attention and I don't want people to lose their... they can get in instead of me. I'm not playing. Yes. So, how much people are in Guild Wars 2 versus the other thing? Also, how big is the Steam player base compared to those who play through the regular launcher? I would guess that that's going to be very low, because most of those people are very, very new players and people that didn't come back in the day, right? And let's be real, this game was very, very famous, especially on launch. Most people probably had an account from the start. And that wasn't on Steam, by the way. Our current team size is roughly what it was during the development of Living World Season 4. That's very interesting, because I'm pretty sure... Well, Living World Season 4. That was before the layoffs. And I'm guessing that they had a lot of people back then doing Guild Wars 2, because, well, when they were doing that, it was like the last thing that they were going to do with Guild Wars 2. Season 4 was a small team when most were on the current, most were on the cancelled project. Well, the thing is, I wonder... Yeah, but does this mean that... Is that what they mean with this? Right? I'm not really sure. Is that what they mean when they say... do they mean like only the people that are playing... that are doing Guild Wars 2 are there? Or do they mean like the whole employees were the people that... like the whole... Like, do they mean like the people that are working on the company are overall the same as the people who were working on the company in Living Wars Season 4, or the team on Guild Wars 2 was the same as Guild Wars 2 on the Season 4? I'm guessing it probably would be the team on the Guild Wars 2 is the same amount as the Living Wars Season 4, I guess. It's kind of hard to tell. But it does 15% larger than it was on the release of End of Dragons in 2024. That being said, Living Wars Season 4 is one of the moments that, people really like the content pace that we were having then. Well, actually, I'm guessing that people now would say that they like that content back then. I'm pretty sure that people complain anyways. The team on Guild Wars 2 right now is the size of the company during Living Wars Season 4. Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of hard to tell. I think what he means is that, because he's not really talking. Yeah, I think it's gonna be. I think this means the team that are working on Guild Wars 2 right now is the same. It's the same size as the team that was working in Guild Wars 2 back then in Living Wars Season 4. I think that's what they mean. And regardless, they did do a good job on Living Wars Season 4, especially compared to now. I think that's fair to say. They did a raid, they did fractals, they did maps, they did a good amount of stuff, and people really liked the story back then. So I don't think it's a bad thing. I think it's a okay thing. And they are hiring, by the way, so they're getting more people, I guess. Regardless, 15% larger than it was on the release of End of Dragons. Okay, which is very interesting as well. They have grown since End of Dragons, and 15% is not a bad number. Thanks to the support of our fans, we've been able to grow our team in recent years. But we have been very careful not to expand too quickly or beyond our means. That's very important. You don't want to have over too many people, essentially paying too many people. While, sometimes having a small team from a game, it's better. It's more focused. You can talk. You know who's doing which thing. You don't have like fucking 1 million people doing random things that you can't really. You don't, when something goes wrong, you can't be like, oh, this guy did it. Like, oh, a whole team of them did it, and I don't know who's at the fault. It's sometimes easier to manage when you have a smaller team, and it's better for money as well. So I mean, dude, Baldur's Gate, that game was fucking awesome, and they didn't have that much of a bigger team, right? So, we'll see, right? Or we'll see how it ends up, but yeah. Maintaining stability of our employees is a top priority for myself and the rest of our leadership team. I think that's also very important. I think Arinet, they do have a good work ethic in their company. It's kind of how they compete with other companies that maybe pay better, which is important, right? That's kind of what their thing is. So it's important that they maintain this, right? And they don't overwork their employees. And I don't want, like, I want a good game, but I don't want people, doing the games that are completely like fucking overworked and they hate their life and whatever. I think most people that have left the company have talked very good things about Arinet, right? It's worth noting that Guild Wars 2 team is fairly small compared to many of our direct competitors. Yeah, I mean, that is true. I do think this is a bit of like a bit of an excuse. Like, guys, look, I understand the other games gave us more stuff, but we're a small team. Well, I mean, yeah, I get it, but like, we're gonna compare. We're just consumers. It's not our responsibility to see how you guys do stuff, right? If it doesn't work for me, it doesn't work for me. If I don't want to play the game because the other game has more content, I'm not playing your game. I don't care what the reason is. I'm sorry. In some cases, we're less than half the size of other studios. We're scrappy. This isn't new for us. Our player-friendly monetization philosophy and lack of subscription fees create some tight constraints for us to work with the others that don't necessarily have to contend with. But it's a trade-off we're happy to make. And I'm sure that a lot of people that play Gears 2 is a trade-off they're happy to make too. At the end of the day, you can't complain, we are not getting enough content, but the thing is, the only MMOs that really get a lot of content, in terms of endgame content, they're subscription-based MMOs. And you want a game like this, what do you want? What I mean, yeah, if you want a game where you don't have a subscription and you only have microtransactions, this is what you're gonna get. If you don't like it, you just don't play this game, right? It's just what it is, right? Microsoft will bind stuff next. Don't worry. Yeah, maybe then we get our cake and eat it too, right? Easy. As for Steam, it remains a small population of our player base, but this wasn't a surprise to us, given the Guild Wars 2 was available for 10 years on our first priority platform before launching on Steam. Most of our players had likely hired of an experience the game at some point. However, something that's been very interesting is how much our first-party new player acquisitions have improved from being on Steam. Our new player acquisition numbers are the strongest they've been since 2006 and 2017. So this is interesting. They're not talking about overall population, they're talking about new players. That is definitely a good thing that, back in 2016 and 17, like, we have better. We have the best acquisition numbers in terms of new players, but we also want, and I want, veteran retention, and I don't think they're doing very well at that point. And I think that is also important. You don't want to just bring people in, then they leave, then you bring more people in and they leave. Like, sometimes you want to keep a bit, keep a bit of people. For me, at least, I think is what I want, because I'm a veteran, so it makes sense, right? We saw more first-time players in 2023 than we did at any point during the COVID-19 pandemic gaming boom. That is actually very interesting. I guess people are kind of hearing about Guild Wars 2 and getting into it, You say you're not able... Oh, also, important. They didn't actually mention how many people are working on the other project. They kind of dodged that question. They kind of said that, we have a lot of people working on Guild Wars 2, guys, but they didn't say how many they had... they're having on the other projects, which is very interesting. I wonder, I might think about it. Maybe we can actually find some ways of finding out how many people are working on the other project to compare. We might actually be able to do some math, maybe for another video. I'll consider it. You said you're now able to make a more long-term approach into planning, with lessons learned from Secrets of the Obscure that will apply to Expansion 5 in very meaningful ways. Could you go into specific on which area will be affected? We're learning a lot About how we develop and release content of this cadence, which absolutely has a downstream effect on the player's experience. The overall shape of development between expansions 4 and 5 are very similar, timeless, resourcing, etc. Even if the content and features are not, this means that we are able to focus on refining our development process with more than reinventing them. Very important, because this game has had a lot of that. Do one system, it doesn't work, let's go do another one. This other system doesn't work, let's make another one. Thus, never actually working on them. And it seems that they're moving a bit more towards that. I do think like sometimes things don't work out and you have to move out of them. Strikes, I think they're a little bit there right now. They're not really working out very well. And they probably gonna have to figure out something. But the better that we can identify production issues like undocumented dependencies, bottlenecks, and resourcing issues, it means that we can proactively address those issues in future dev cycles. Very important as well. From our experiences with Secrets of the Obscure alone, we have adjusted development schedules, review processes, dev resource allocations, documentation, and communication practices, and more. All of them contribute to some degree to improving the quality of what we deliver. This definitely will help with not only doing more content, but spending less money on making the content. So essentially, eventually being able to actually, do more, right, and better quality. We haven't seen that right now. I think a lot of people are kind of sad about the state of the quality of the expansion, but even on the inner nails, I think it's pretty easy to tell that they're getting a bit better at it with this new system. Yaldaos was it's pretty bad. Then Secrets of the Obscure had a lot of cool things, but also a lot of things that the maps, not a lot of people like them. There's still a lot of reuse assets there, and there's a lot of issues, right? But then Inner Nails, there you go. Like, I think Inner Nails is kind of like a bang. I think it's kind of good. As a good meta. It's a good map. A lot of quests, a lot of collections, right? So hopefully the next patch is also gonna be that way. And hopefully, even though I don't care that much about reuse assets, it is very important that next expansion does feel very new and doesn't feel like everything's just reused. We'll see how that one works. In Secrets of the Obscure, you have ditched the elite specialization added to reach of the previous expansion in favor of new weapon proficiencies. Does that mean no more elite specs will be introduced in future Guild Wars 2 expansions? Ho ho ho! We're not ready to shut the door on elite specializations quite yet. It's always possible that they will make a return in a future expansion. For now, we like the flexibility that focusing on weapons offers, and we've proven out that we can add new layers of gameplay interaction through just the weapons themselves. We plan to focus on weapons for next expansion, but we have a fun surprise in store to keep things fresh and exciting. So something new is gonna happen with the weapons. I don't know what that's gonna be. Interesting. And the elite specs are not dead. They might come in the expansion. Wait, 6. Yeah, 6. Maybe it could be nice. I do think the biggest thing about elite specs is I really don't like is that you cannot miss out on the flavor of like, ooh, I am a virtuoso, I am a berserker, all those things. The weapons are nice, but they don't really feel that way. So I hope that eventually they do that. We'll see how it ends up working, and now that they're pairing them, they're on pairing with the weapons, you will have a little bit of a better way of balancing things, a bit easier to what's the word? To create them without being tied to something, right? A bit more freedom for you to be able to actually design very fun elite specializations that maybe are not as overpowered as the other ones, but still work on pretty well, in the game. Mostly for flavor, right? For RP. How do you sell on the specific weapon proficiency for each class? Also, is the ranger ever going to get a rifle pistol? This guy, the person who's doing the interview, he's a ranger main. Okay, they're ranger main. They always like, oh my god, please give me a rifle pistol, please. And they're like, please, I need to know. Are we gonna get it? Are we? Pretty funny stuff. There are many ways to go about designing a new kit or abilities. For example, you might start by identifying interest in high level themes and aesthetics, and then building up the gameplay around those concepts. That's how many of those base provisions and elite specializations came to be in Guild Wars 2. For Secrets of the Obscure, we chose a slightly different tact, focused on addressing shortcomings in each profession. Yeah, you can see a lot of the new weapons being solving issues that the the class itself had for a long time, right? You have staff warrior doing, being a weapon for healing that, warrior just didn't have, right? You had spec, like, the thief weapon being essentially a weapon that can do a bit more AoE damage, and also being a weapon that you don't have to press one button over and over again, because that's how thief works. You actually have to press multiple buttons to make the rotation. Essentially fixing things and rounding up those classes with things that they didn't have, which is very important. And they did a pretty good job on that overall, with some exceptions, like, like short bow, Andy, yeah? We started a new weapon design process by identifying gameplay gaps in each profession across PvE, PvP, and War vs. World. This included examining the high-level roles such as traditional bound support, healing, and damage, and more niche considerations like non-projectile range damage options for War vs. World. The goal of all of this is to make more professions usable in a wider variety of contexts. There's plenty of gaps left for us to address, but we're making good progress between the introduction of weapon mastery training, the latest weapons proficiencies, and our ongoing skills and balance work. As for Ranger getting rifle/pistol, no comment. Haha, get fucked, Ranger mains. You're getting nothing. Yeah, dude. Now we'll see. We'll see what happens. I'm sure that eventually will happen, but they probably can't spill the beans on that one, right? Of course they can't. May they get both, in one expansion, guys. Copium. You recently conducted the weapon proficiency beta. Community feedback seemed to range from positive to quite negative. True, Sharbo. Depending on the class and weapon edition, can you share any tweaks that will be based on the feedback? We're not quite ready to share any news, but we'll be back early next year with a blog post that outlines the changes we're making based on player feedback. The War vs. World objectives seem a bit too skewed towards PvP, towards everything, to be honest. Is there any chance to more... Wait, what? Wizards Vault objectives seem a bit too skewed towards PvP. Like, you're saying that PvP has too many, like, good rewards on Wizards Vault or objectives? Bro, they have the same thing over and over again. The one that has more are PvE ones. Is there any chance more PvE objectives can be added to the mix? Bro, I mean, I understand what you mean, and I agree with the message. With the solution, you should put more PvE objects and rotate them out, because it's always the same thing. I know you said that PvP has too many. PvE is fastest, easiest. Yeah, maybe I guess you're right. I don't know if that's actually true. I kind of disagree with that a little bit, but I understand what you mean. Maybe that's what I meant. Yes, we plan to continue refining on and adding new objectives across game modes for new and existing content. Like, yeah, please, because we have gotten the same objectives for like months now. Can we please? I thought that's was gonna be the new season, new objectives. So I guess no, which I really was disappointed about, to be honest. In September, you essentially delayed the alliance system in favor of going live with the long-anticipated World vs. World reconstructing. Is there any update you can provide on the alliance system? Will it return at some point next year? In terms of World reconstructing and alliances are often used by our community interchangeably. Despite being very different things, World reconstructing describes the new team-based World vs. World matchmaking system that we have been developing for the past few years, while alliances are a sub-component to the system that allows multiple small mid-sized guilds to group together for matchmaking. Yeah, I think there's a lot of people get confused with those two things. World reconstruction is the most important part right now for World vs. World to kind of don't have too many balance issues in terms of population, and that's what we're gonna get very soon. Alliances are important, but most of the alliances things that we have gotten, like new rewards and incentives to play World vs. World, are already here, and they've been here for a long time. So World reconstruction is almost the only thing that we're missing. So hopefully we do get that, very soon, and hopefully it does work out pretty well. As we start digging into it, Alliance's implementation, it became increasingly clear to us that we were on a path to building a system that would largely be duplicative of guilds and the functionality they offer. Players can already create alliance-like guilds that contain up to 500 players. Now, the main downside of the pivot is that not every player is gonna have a free guild slot that are willing to use for a new super guild. We're actively looking into solutions for this that don't require the steep development and investment that alliances would. We should have more to share on that front early next year. I think it's a cool little thing that we have there. I think it's kind of nice that we are... What's the word? I think it's nice that they saw that there's an issue that they were fixing that didn't really exist. And the most important part of this was the reconstructing part. 90% guild slots in the gem store. May that's interesting. Maybe that would be a bit weird though. Fuck, I don't know if I like that. But maybe, to be fair, if they do that, that would be a good way of monetizing Warforged Vault, so they actually can justify a lot of development on it in the first place. So it wouldn't be, I guess it wouldn't be the worst thing ever, even though it feels a bit weird. You know what I mean? But yeah, we'll see what happens. I think it's a good. It's good that they're seeing like, oh, even though we haven't spent a lot of time doing this, maybe it's not really gonna solve anything. Maybe it's just better to just solve the actual problem and not. And alliances are important, but most of the things on alliances have already been done, right? So yeah, I don't know. It's a bit of alliances are a bit difficult. I'm happy that we're getting reconstructing though. That's the most important part though. For new players, navigating through Guild Wars 2 many currencies can be confusing. True! Is there any plan to consolidate some of them? Yes, we have a long list of core improvements we would like to make. And they have done very well with this. All this year, they've been doing core and new player systems essentially way better and way easier to understand. So I definitely believe in them in this way. This is one of those many items on the list. A comprehensive update for currencies is a big undertaking, yeah, for sure. So we're likely to do in smaller chunks as time allows. Yeah, because every currency is kind of tied to something else. So if you change one, you have to change everything that interacts with that currency in the first place, which is a big undertaking. It might be easier for you to be like, oh, well, you just change the currency to something else or just merge them together. It's a lot. Everything that interacts with that currency is going to have to be changed and recoded a little bit, right? Which is, in a game so old as this and so complex, it's a bit of an issue, yeah? We took a step forward, currency unification last year with the consolidation of dungeon currencies into dells of dungeon delving. That also probably did take a lot, right? The base game's dungeon look a bit like a leftover content expand, but they can be really cool in terms of story and atmosphere. Did you consider adding challenge modes to make them relevant once again for the endgame loop? No, this is not something we're currently considering. Oh, dungeon fans in fucking shambles. It's fucking over, dude. Poor little guys. They're over. They're over. No challenge modes for dungeons. Unlucky. What are you gonna do? As a follow-up of the endgame topic, could you share which activities you plan to focus on the future improvements on the expansion? In the first half of the year, we'll be introducing the Temple of Phoebus Strike Mission Challenge. Yes. And new 5-player Fractal Dungeon and Challenge Mode. Beyond that, and I think a lot of people are kind of disappointed with the strikes as well because of Dagda. Hopefully Temple of Phoebe will be different. And a lot of people are also disappointed with the Fractal Dungeon, Sand Surf, and the Challenge Mode. So they're also very hesitant to be excited about some of this. So even though it might be good, I'm not gonna hold my breath on it. I'm not gonna lie. Beyond that, I think fans will be pretty stoked when they hear about our plans for endgame PvE content in our expansion. I hope so. I'm not sure if I believe you, but I hope so. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. There's growing interest in alternate modes like hardcore servers. Oh yes. Okay. There's growing interest in alternate modes like hardcore servers, classic servers, etc. in the MMORPG genre. Do you have any plans to offer anything like servers with more challenging PvE difficulty, for example? It's an interesting idea, but it's not a priority for us. Trend chasing is inherently risky and potentially alienate your existing fans if it goes poorly. That's a good point. Even though I like hardcore and all this, not a lot of people are gonna. It's risky, and sometimes it's better to just stack with the things that you have to do and and then you move on with the next thing, right? Yeah, and then maybe when everything is done and everyone's happy and everything's fine, you can go and chase a little trend, just see how it goes, and just not invest too much into it, but just go. From what we observed in the industry for the past few years, it usually doesn't pan out. For now, we're focused on serving our current community and making Guild Wars 2 the best it can be. It sounds like the game will be surprised for many years to come. Are you evaluating the addition of modern rendering features such as TEA support, which could in turn open up to upscalers like NVIDIA DLSS and AMD FSR? I actually don't really sure what these things mean. I guess it's more upscalers. It's just to make the game look a bit better, like 4K and stuff like this. Can you read the article? Yes, of course. As for TA or DLSS support, it's not a priority for us right now, but it's certainly a possibility down the road. Plenty of lower hanging fruit that we like to get first. This is very interesting to me because I think I was considering and if you saw the copcast, you can tell, right? A better fidelity and performance. I thought there's a possibility of essentially they updating the engine to look better, graphical updates, or maybe move to another engine or whatever. I think it was a possibility. But them saying here that they're not focused on that, it makes me think that that's not going to be a possibility. And things they're not even thinking about that kind of stuff. Because if they were and they were working on some of that, they would say like, well, we can't really talk about that, but we're going to have, maybe, this is very much like, no, it's not going to happen. Right? We believe Guild Wars 2 will be around for years to come. That is very important though. So we're putting an increased focus on long-term tech investment, both in terms of player-facing improvement, visual fidelity, performance, and developing pacing improvements, tools, and flow work. That's also very important though, because this game is kind of scuffed in terms of coding. So it's very good that we're gonna get some, some improvements in terms of that. So the game looks a bit better, but also it's easier to code, it's easier to develop, because that is very important. Management processing update, which was said to be worked on. They probably, yeah, that is a good point. Where is that? I'm guessing that's the kind of thing that they're talking about here. But they did, they put it in and then they took it out because people complained, and it's not here. Unlucky. We completed our upgrade to DX11 DX9 earlier this year, and on top of unlocking some small performance improvements, it has also opened some interesting possibilities for developers for coming content like new shaders and lighting options. Thank you for your time. Now, I'm gonna reread this actually, because last time I read this yesterday, I was like, oh my god, what are you saying here? But now now I'm rereading it, I don't think it's that big of a deal. So, as a follow-up of the endgame topic, could you share which activities you plan to focus on improvements and expansion? Blah blah. Beyond that, I think fans will be very stoked when they hear about our plans for endgame PvE content in our next expansion. So what does that mean? I think that's the biggest thing about this that really makes me think. What does that mean? Plans for endgame PvE content in our next expansion. 3 strikes. When I read this, they will probably do a raid, but I don't see who cares at this stage. It'll be easy as fuck. I don't think people care about being easy in this game. I know that we care because we're hardcore players. We're like hard things. People don't give a fuck in this game about this. What people want is an easy raid that they can blast through over and over again that has a little bit of pushback. But they feel powerful because they can kill it. That's what this game probably needs. And yeah, sure, you can make a CM that is like insanely powerful, like insanely hard, because it's just, I don't know, tuned very properly, right? And that probably isn't that hard. But yeah, it sounds like it is a raid, but yeah, I don't know. I feel like I'm really not sure what this is. I'm not really sure what this is. It could be a multiple things. I think I saw a Reddit post about it could be like new 5-man content. That could be a thing. It could be harder open world content that is instance, like 50-man content, like conversions that are very, very difficult. Maybe CMs for like that kind of stuff, right? Which honestly wouldn't be the worst thing ever. I'm making a video. We'll talk about it later. Yes, and then there's a lot of things that it could be. More strikes, 3 instead of 2 that we're getting, which would be a very nice thing, as long as the quality of them is very good. It could be an insane amount of stuff, and we really don't have enough to be able to say. So, yeah, Grouch knows which words to use. If it was only strikes, he would have precisely stated that. It's probably that they replaced the fractal release with a raid release. I don't know. I think it's being vague on I think it's just being vague on purpose, so he can't really say anything. He's just like your typical politician who talks about problems, not fix them. Well, of course you can't. Okay, everyone talks about politicians like this, but guys, what do you want this guy to do? To say, guys, this is what we're gonna do, and then they change their mind, and then everyone's mad because they change their mind? Like, you can't do that. You cannot be a director and saying and spinning the fucking beans and fucking over everyone in your fucking company. You have to be vague. If you don't do this, it's completely a horrible, horrible idea. And if you talk about things like, oh my god, this is not working us pretty well for us, and it's complete dog shit, right? Also, you have problems because people then are like, oh, well, so you don't even believe in your thing. Like, you don't believe in your product. You have to be very careful on how you talk about these things. So it's just good enough. So and you have to accept that some things might go wrong, right? But you have to be very careful to not make people think that your game is like fucking dead or whatever and has a lot of issues. While also, because people are not reasonable, they're not gonna be like, oh, I understand what you mean there. The game's still like nice to play with, even though there's a lot of issues. You have to be very careful. You have to be a politician if you're like a game director. You have to be. Bruce has been pretty vague about upcoming WoW content in the roadmap, but no one really cares because the game is doing well. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And if the game is doing badly, they're also gonna be a bit vague, right? They've all does when WoW was doing badly, they were also gonna be vague, and they would like excite you about the things that are coming, which is very important. And I think Hero Shoot can do way better on that. But you know, it just yeah. So we'll see what happens. Overall, I mean, it's a good post. It gives you just enough, so your copium, you know, your copium storage is it's replenished. You're like, okay, maybe things go better. I think most of the people are kind of happy with the game. Well, I think just veterans are kind of not happy with the game, and for veterans, this is just enough, I think, to keep the copium going. Elite specializations, that's a huge thing that people are really gonna be happy about because people missed it. I think. What is the other important part? The alliance there, honestly, that's irrelevant. Like, we knew this. I think honestly the biggest things are the biggest things were the elite specialization and the new the elite specialization and the endgame content thing. Because people are they've been very sad about PvE endgame content, and knowing that they're looking into that, it's very good. It's very important. I know that, you know, it might not be enough for a lot of people, but maybe for the people that, you know, they're trying to get back in, it is. I think the biggest thing though overall on this post is that it makes it sound like they really care about the game enough that they're actually investing a lot into it, right? They're like, no, this game is gonna stay here for a long time. We're thinking about expansions 6, I mean, already, and 5 isn't released even. And we're gonna do, you know, we consider this game our game, you know, our MMORPG. And, you know, they even said, like, oh, this is the amount of people that we got. We have the same amount of people working the game than Liberation 4, which is one of the prime times of Guild Wars 2, right? I'm gonna try and calculate how much that means, but that's gonna be another video. But I think that's the biggest thing, to give hope for people that, you know, you're not investing your time into something that's gonna just die. I'd be replaced by another MMO that we're working on the side. Which I don't think they are. Otherwise, they wouldn't be doing these things. I just don't believe that they would be doing this kind of stuff if they were actually making another MMO on the side. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. Tell me what you guys think in the comments, and we'll talk about it in chat as well on Twitch, of course. And subscribe to the channel. Go to my Patreon for more stuff like this. See you soon. Love you all. Bye-bye. That's for YouTube, though.